Okay, so this is a new type of piece because it's going to be an improv. Like, I've done own text. I've tried to do stage directions. I've done own text type of things before, but never like this, but there is a reason. So today is December 19th, which would be my grandma's birthday. She died earlier this year, back in September on the 15th. And she would always go on about how she thought I was, well, she called it my cleverness when she meant my ability to memorize, which is debatable. I mean, I have Freudian slips and all sorts of mess-ups in terms of my memorization, but she always thought that it was something like astronomically brilliant. And I'm not just saying that to be like, she thought I was special, because all grandparents think that their grandkids are special, but she did. It's funny. On the last week that she was alive, there was like two main moments. Like, there was like little bits and pieces, but there were two main moments where she was especially lucid. Both of which, so the first one was Darius, my sibling of sorts. So my mom was like mentioning that she was going to go visit him and being like, oh, I have to go see Darius. I'm going to go see Darius. And Tutu awoke like the Avatar. You know, we make jokes of like grandkids. So she awoke like the Avatar and said, oh, he's a good and special boy, which was adorable. And then the one for me, I was the last person she talked to, but it became clear that she was, you know, it was the end of the line, and my mom was like, I may as well hold up the phone, you know, just so that you can talk to her. And I was crying, and she just, again, awoken grandkids like the Avatar, and just started talking to me, and it was a very sweet conversation. But it was funny because I was already crying, because I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to actually talk to her ever again. So I was like, and I made a joke that I sounded like Mickey Mouse when I really should have sounded like Donald Duck, because Granddaddy, her husband, he would always do this perfect Donald Duck impression. Anyways, but it was a little joke. Tutu was very much a jokester, so I'm glad that my last conversation with her included a little quip like that. But she was always so, like, quick-witted and brilliant in terms of, like, just holding on a conversation. And anyone who has talked to me in person knows that I'm not that way unless I'm, like, super on the same, like, page as you. Like, if I know you for a while, I can hold a conversation. But if you're a brand new person, I'm just going to say the weirdest nonsense, and it's going to be... I apologize in advance for anyone who has to deal with, like, first human interaction me, especially after pandemic. I don't even know what I'm going to be like. I've talked to strangers, no, don't talk to strangers, but I've talked to, like, people I haven't actually, like, befriended, for business reasons, and it's been fine. But, like, the second I'm at, like, a party or something post-pandemic, I don't even know what it's gonna be like. But I'm probably going to be very, like, blanche du bois, like, so... I'm ranting because that's how I proves my point, but also this is why, well, maybe this makes me good at the kind of cabaret sort of own text, because everyone that I love who's a cabaretist, who, like, they try to tell one story and you end up with 15. I mean, y'all might have seen Ingenue Audition, y'all understand. Anyways, James, who's recording me, is doing all sorts of strange little whatever. He's doing all sorts of gay motions, and I appreciate it. I appreciate my audience. Anyways, I need to stay on track, even though that's something I'm absolutely incapable of, which is exactly why I don't usually do own texts. But I am trying to branch out, because what I was getting at is that Tutu was always so brilliant at just being a raconteur. She could talk to anyone. Like, there would just be, she'd be at the deli and she'd have one conversation with somebody, and then she'd get a letter in the mail, like maybe 3 months later, being like, oh, do you want to be the godmother of my child because I've fallen in love with you? Like, that kind of weird, absurd stuff. She would, like, have so many people who were just so entranced and would hang off her every word. And she would always say that it was so strange that, like, in a family not of performers, I caught the bug, and I became, wanting to be on stage, wanting to be a performer, and she'd be like, that's so weird, because none of us are performers, and yet she'd be the center of attention. Like, we'd go to the mall, and she'd just, like, start talking or something, and before you know it, a whole crowd of people would be so enamored in everything that this person had to say. Like, she went to this coffee shop once, and she was just making her order and going all of these little frivolous things of like, oh, I want, this sort of milk, this much, foam, this, that, and the other. And she had this really thick British accent that I'm not even going to attempt to try, because hers was absolutely authentic and perfect. And she was talking to the barista, who happened to be somebody who was in the local production of Cabaret, so in Minnesota. His name's Bradley Greenwald. I don't know if he's still a barista, but if he is, shout out to Bradley Greenwald. And he was taking her order, and she was like, oh, I think I'm asking for too much. And he was like, honey, with that accent, you can ask for anything you want. And I'm like, Tutu, you seduced the MC? You literally... And I was so in awe, because that's like the Minnesota version. Well, there's multiple MCs, one of which was my cabaret teacher, but that one was the first MC I'd ever seen, so that to me, that's like the Minnesota version of Alan Cumming, essentially, that my little old Tutu, my little old grandma, just not charmed the pants off of, I don't think, but charmed tremendously. And she would always go on about how she, like, had these cute young guys, but was very much... Anyways, she was very much a flirt, but at the same time very much like charming little grandma person. I'm going on about many a thing that I tried to come up with like an outline for this, and who knows how long this is going to be, because I came up with an outline and I'm only on like the second little bullet point that I had made. Who knows what this is going to do, but Tutu was always extremely talkative, and I was... Look at me. I'm always extremely talkative as long as I have something to say. I can sit and stand on the outskirts of things like a wallflower, growing foliage up against the wall, just saying nothing. But if I have something to say, I'm just going to keep blabbering, which is what's happening right now. But I need to actually... She'd also tell me I talk too fast, but she also would get fast talking. She just didn't notice that she would. Anyways, I'm getting so sidetracked, but my point is that I'm attempting now to have even a smidgen of the kind of, like, improvisational, can't talk, but improvised storytelling that Tutu had, because she could be so just absolutely captivating to everybody. And I do not think that I possess the gift of gab, but I wish to. James, what's happening? You're making all sorts of... You good?
I'm trying not to cough.
Oh, go over there and cough. It's fine. It's gonna keep rolling. It's gonna keep rolling. Anyways, I promise he doesn't have COVID, nor do I. We've both been extremely safe. Anyways, but, what I was trying to get at is the fact that, that it's Christmas time, hence this ornament that I've been holding and gesticulating with for quite some time. But I already said that it's the 19th of December. But she was, Tutu was very much into Christmas, because being the enormous type of extrovert that she is, would be very much into, like, any excuse to socialize and go down to the, like, the social lounge, the lobby of her, the building that she was mostly in for my lifetime, and would just use all of the, like, bake sale, should be there, talking up everybody. Craft table situation should be, befriending every single person, and, like, the people, the date mates brought by her neighbors' grandchildren should suddenly become best friends with and keep in touch with, like, that kind of intense friendliness, which is so vastly different. Like, I like to think that I am, sociable and welcoming, but that kind of stuff is so beyond what I can imagine. But the thing is that she grew up in England, in small towns. She bopped around, as did my mom, but, like, it would be the kind of thing where you physically could be friends with every single person in the town, and she would be. That sort of situation. But point being, though, is that she loved Christmas and would do all sorts of things. She would decorate the hallways, deck the halls, haha, but she would decorate the hallways outside of her apartment, and it would span, like, essentially the block of apartments, and no one would really mind because it was so elaborate and so cool. She would, she collected these, like, bendy Santas. They were a big thing, like, in the 90s and early 2000s. I don't know if it's still such a thing. I know, some things give them out. I don't know. But, point being is that she would bedeck the little, like, hallway rails that people would need, like, to get down the hall. She'd put these little bendy Santas in the thing that attached it to the wall, just kind of hanging there and all posed differently, and thankfully never blocking the way for the people who needed it, but she would have it all dancing, all these Santas. So that would be one of the things she did, but she also collected these Christmas trees, one of which is this one that I have. Of course, I have the gay one, which I'm matching in my bracelet. There's purpose behind this. It may seem completely unrehearsed, but there is purpose behind this. Point being, though, is that this is one of them that I got. And I realized, as I was thinking about this piece, and as I was thinking, well, that's a lofty thing to call it, but whatever we call this little improvisational situation, point being is that I was thinking about the fact that this proves a trend, which is the fact that almost all of the things that Tutu gave me, or that especially the ones that I still have, just kind of have become, like, they have queer sensibility about them. Like, we've got the gay tree, we've got the pride flag tree that's happening here, and we have, apparently, it is a convention amongst non-binary people, of which I am one, to love frogs. And so what's funny is that my grandma had given me all these, like, more prissy things, like, she did these ceramic work, and she did, you know, one of the dwarves from Snow White, which I feel bad, because as an adult, I would have been like, oh, thank you, Tutu, that's wonderful. But as a kid, I was spooked by it, and everyone thought it was especially funny because they think that I was spooked by it because its nose was so phallic. So I was, like, spooked by it, and she was like, oh no, now they don't like this. And she also made me this, like, I still have it, but it's a Rococo, like, noble woman, looks like Marie Antoinette, and it's got, it's a lamp, and it has the lampshade behind it. But the thing that I really loved, statue-wise, that she made, were these frogs. These thick-ass, big, chubby little frogs. And one of them was, you know, the size of 2 palms together, and the other one was probably the same girth as me. And the thing is that she made them for Granddaddy, my grandpa, but he realized that I was way more into the frogs than I was all the prissy things that she was actually trying to give me. And so he wound up being like, oh, let Catherine have the frogs. They're gonna love them. And I do, and I still have them, not here in Hoboken, but in Minnesota, and I'll have them for as long as I live, probably, hopefully. So there's those ones. She has all of these tchotchkes, one of which is this, like, flapper lady, which she'd put her jewelry on, which is very, it's not gay, but it's so gay. It's so gay. And the other thing, of course, is Queer Dog, otherwise known as Dolly, which is this, she bought it, but it's this sculpture of a Dalmatian. And the thing is that even before the sculpture of the Dalmatian, her and I, when she was in the hospital, would trade back this Beanie Baby Dalmatian, who, of course, anyone who knows me probably knows of Queer Dog, this Dalmatian with queer written behind him, and he's yelling queer, and that's Queer Dog. And so when she died, I was able to have Queer Dog, aka Dolly the Dalmatian, who I actually dressed up as for Halloween this year. But anyways, it's funny, all of this, because I promise there's reason for me to be talking about queerness, which is that, firstly, she was, like, she never really understood it, but she always tried her best, which is so commendable and means the world to me, meant the world to me. Like, for instance, there was times when we would stay up all night and she would just be asking me questions, and it never got to a point of understanding, but she was really trying. And another thing is she had, like, $12 words that she would just pull out of her pocket in normal conversation. People say that I do that, but they don't understand how much Tutu would do that. Like, she would use the word abattoir in a perfectly, conversational sentence, and then be surprised when the people who she was talking about didn't know that it meant a butcher shop, that sort of a thing. So, needless to say, playing word games like Upwards, which is the British version of Scrabble, and things like that, she'd pretty much always beat you. I mean, my mom could give her a run for the money, but I very rarely could, except for when I realized that I can put words like neopronouns, which includes things like Z and here, and things that have the high buck letters in them. Small amounts, so like 3-letter words, but with X's and Z's and things like that. And then she'd be like, that's not a word. And then I could be like, yes it is, Tutu, and explain to her neopronouns and things like that, and demigenders, things like that. And she was always interested, no matter how, like, the strangeness of, like, how I'd kind of slide them into our Upwards games and things like that. But also, those hairs trying to throw off my rhythm. Anyways, but aside from that, I also, all over everywhere. Anyways, I also have this shirt, which I actually acquired prior to this. I didn't know I was going to do this. I didn't know this was going to be a piece, if we even want to call it that. But point being, my shirt says, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is by being cute and hella queer. And as such, I am wearing that, but also not just because of Christmas or queerness, but because Tutu actually took me to see Elf in the theaters. But not when you would expect. So I'm sure many people had this sort of situation where they had people, maybe, I don't know, I know it's still going on. They have $1 movies that were the ones during the actual blockbuster season, but in the smack dab dog days of summer. So when they don't actually have, like, the big blockbusters or anything. So it was a good way of, like, keeping kids entertained. And apparently they're still doing it as long as Regal Cinemas are still a thing. Like, so for the after times, for when things get safer, I'm giving you a pro tip for anybody who has kids in their life, or if you just want to see some, like, cool animated things, or, like, movie musicals, they might have cats, that would be a trip. Anyways, but point being is that they had Elf, and so I think it was, I don't even think it was Christmas in July, I think it was like August or something, and she took me to go see that, and it was, of course, I was more than happy. She took me to see a lot of these. There was another one, another Christmas movie. A lot of the movies she would take me to were, like, the kids' ones, but sometimes there was also, like, strange romantic comedies that they were just trying to, like, break even because they didn't make that much money. So it was always a strange thing of, like, when we'd get, like, a romantic comedy and I didn't understand it and she didn't necessarily like it, but we were still having a good time because we were just watching a movie together. Anyways, point being is that Elf was one of the movies that we watched, and I really enjoyed that one, and I promise I will get to the actual point, but speaking of the queerness, I need to remark upon this because it just kind of fits the oeuvre of this conversation that we are having, because apparently this is a two-way conversation. If you're responding at home, that is magnificent. Please do. I just know that I can't hear you, but if you want to write in the comments or something, I will respond to what you respond to this with any ways you understand. Point being is that I will get to the point eventually. In regards to the being cute and hella queer, it's funny that I have this shirt also in that it's like Elf and queerness, because when I was in Chicago, which was a trash situation, that whole semester was a lot, because of homophobia reasons, but I wound up having, again with the discount tickets, that's an ongoing theme throughout my life, I had a $10 ticket to see Elf on tour, like the musical, and I swear to God, my gay ass saw in like a big ensemble scene. There was like an ice skating rink situation. I think it was like on rollerblades, but they had some ostensibly same-gender couples just like ice skating together arm in arm. And after a semester of having to deal with all sorts of homophobic nonsense, my gay ass just started weeping, and there was kids in the audience, so I was like, ah! And these poor children who were just trying to see Buddy the Elf have a fun little fancy-dancy Broadway musical have to deal with this person behind them just ugly sobbing. Anyways, I figured that was worth mentioning, especially if you want to. You don't even have to picture me up ugly sobbing. You just have to watch the other performances of mine. Pro tip. Anyways, but back to Elf and back to my shirt. This is not the actual quote that's in the movie. Surprisingly, I know you're all baffled because you definitely thought that this is where they were going with a Will Ferrell mid-2000s movie. Anyways, but the actual quote is, "The best way to spread Christmas cheer is by singing loud for all to hear." Standard, like, kid fair type of thing. But in the movie, they have this part where they're in Central Park, and I just watched it, and it's legit. It has Bethesda in it. You know that's a way to win my heart easily. But anyways, it has Bethesda in it, and it also has an ACAB message, which, brilliant. Love it. Anyways, but, so Santa's being chased by the cops, and the sleigh's malfunctioning. And in order to get the sleigh to work, everybody has to, like, prove that they believe in Santa. So then, the love interest of Buddy the Elf, who he had already told the best way to spread Christmas cheer is by singing loud for all to hear, gets up on one of the, like, carriagey things by Central Park and just starts singing, and it's Zooey Deschanel, and she's singing, "You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why, Santa Claus is coming to town," and then everyone in the movie starts singing along. Before anyone is even encouraged to sing along in the movie, Tutu's already like, "He's making all this, he's checking it twice, you better find out who's naughty or nice, Santa Claus is coming to town," and nudging me to sing, and I'm like, okay, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. She looks to, like, the teenagers trying to be smooching. "He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake." The person who's looking after, like, 10 kids and is just falling asleep, "Oh, you better watch out, you better not cry," just singing in the middle of, like, August in a suburban, like, Eagan, Minnesota theater. There's maybe 7 of us in the whole theater, and she's belting at the top of her lungs, and then everyone in the movie singing along, and it was just very sweet, because that's exactly what she would do. She would be more than happy being the center of attention, but also so into it. She was like, audience participation? Okay. In fact, I remember at Queertopia, which was the Pride show that I was in, there's the end part where everyone goes on stage and we're all dancing to, like, I Will Survive or some other type of, like, gay disco thing that's happening. And Tutu, who was in the front row, just jumps up and is like dancing, and then the drag queens are all like, "Oh yeah!" and come, you know, go around her and are, like, dancing with her, and there's this mini, like, dance circle happening. And yeah, that's what would, she loved audience participation, even if she didn't, like, admit to it. Anyways, but yeah, so needless to say, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is by singing loud for all to hear, which is precisely what I'm going to do after all this preamble. I don't know how long this is. I have no idea. I didn't know how long I was going to talk. I thought it was going to be like 5 minutes, but I certainly think that it's more than that. Anyways, but singing loud for all to hear is what I am going to do, but, well, I need to have some water because I've been yelling, but the situation is that we already sang Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and I hope, if any of y'all are like Tutu, that you were singing along with me. But point being is that we've already sung that. That's trodden territory. That's already been done. But what hasn't been done is another Christmas classic, Blue Christmas, by Elvis. Well, it's probably not by Elvis. Most of the things by Elvis are not by Elvis. But point being, he's the one who kind of made it more popular. And Tutu loved Elvis so much. She had the, like, Sirius FM channel of Elvis and would just play it on repeat, but would always clarify of like, oh, I love him so much, but only his voice. Like, she would always be like, I don't think he's attractive. I mean, I think he's maybe a 5 out of 10. I think he's overrated. His looks are overrated, but his voice, oh, like, she was so into his voice. The point being is that we're doing Blue Christmas for that reason, but also because, in my personal opinion, for me, Christmas cheer is best spread with the kind of Christmas songs that are not necessarily like chipper cheerful. There's a place for that, but in my own personal experience, the ones that are just absolutely devastating, those make me feel the holiday spirit. But I am going to take a sippy sip of water here. Whatever. I didn't plan for this to be in the shop, but Tutu would always bring me to Starbucks as a kid and buy me like the frilly nonsense drinks anyway, so we're getting some product placement whether we like it or not. I'll have a blue Christmas without you. I'll be so blue just thinking about you. Decorations of red on a green Christmas tree won't be the same, dear, if you're not here with me. And when those blue snowflakes start falling, that's when those blue memories are calling. You'll be doing alright with your Christmas of white, but I'll have a blue, blue Christmas. Lots of love, Tutu.